In this video, we provide an overview of lesson 4.1, which is all about basic concepts of probability. This is the first lesson or section in the chapter on probability that we're covering in our course. There are a number of sections in this chapter. There's actually some excellent information in the sections that we're choosing to omit. But due to time constraints, we're just focused on these three sections in the textbook. So we're going to talk about 4.1, the basic concepts of probability. This is from chapter 4 of the Essentials of Statistics text, 6th edition by Mario Triola. Now these slides are based on slides provided by Pearson and then modified by me for our course. So let's talk about the key concepts. First of all, we want to understand the role of probability in statistics. We're going to discuss that in much more detail when we talk about the rare event rule with our fourth learning outcome in this lesson. I believe it's the fourth learning outcome. Then we're also going to learn how to interpret probability values. These are just numbers between 0 and 1 that represent expressions of likelihood. We want to know what a probability of 0 means and what a probability of 1 means, and approximately what all those probabilities in between 0 and 1 represent to us. We're going to say that a small probability, such as 0.001, corresponds to an event that is very rare. And a larger probability, such as 0.99, that corresponds to an event that is very likely to occur. Then we also want to understand odds and how they relate to probabilities. So we actually have 5 learning outcomes for this lesson. The first is to define some important terms related to probability, including events. We're going to talk about simple events and then sample spaces. And then we're going to talk about how to calculate probabilities. We're going to use 4 common approaches to estimate or find the probability of an event, or we're going to describe 4 common approaches. And then we're going to talk about the law of large numbers and how that can be used to interpret relative frequency approximations. And third, we're going to define the complement of an event and find the probability of the complement of an event. And then 4, this is probably the most important most important learning outcome in this section. We're going to state the rare event rule for inferential statistics. And then we're going to use it to infer whether a certain number of successes is significantly high or significantly low. This is important mostly because it's a takeaway that will relate to what we study for the rest of the course. I mean, we're in chapter 4. We're going to study chapters 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This rare event rule is related to what we're going to do in chapters 8, 9, and 10. So it's really important that you understand it. This is your first introduction to it, and we're going to come back to that over and over again throughout the semester. And then lastly, our last learning outcome is to understand this idea of odds against something happening, odds in favor of something happening, and payoff odds. Those are all terms that are used in casinos and with regard to lotteries and in anything involving gambling, especially living in Oklahoma where we have a lot of casinos, it's important to know what those numbers mean. So we're going to learn what those numbers mean and how they're related to probabilities. We're going to learn that in our last learning outcome. So that's it for our overview of lesson 4.1, which is all about the basics of probability.